In this video, I walk you through covering a real news event. I made it for students who've never been on one before, and they've said it helped them see the event from many different angles, and also helped them wrap their mind around the entire event, which is humbling because some of the students at this specific event also covered the event as journalism students and said that the whole process made a lot more sense after watching this video. So, the video you'll be watching here is the filming of the event. That's important because I've made several videos from this content, and you will see those in the course list. So, those subsequent videos are of me writing the story and also editing the story. Now keep in mind, these are longer videos, but again, we're talking about compressing an 8 to 9 hour day down to a few videos with me explaining to you not only what I'm doing, but also why I'm doing it. So if you really want a true behind-the-scenes look into what it's like to cover a real news event with real news value, watch these. I'll see you there. In this video, we're going to be covering a real press event, a Get Out the Vote rally here on Richland College, and what you're going to see me do today is cover this as a daily. I'll be covering the rally, I'll be following the parade to the polls, I'll be getting what you call MOS, the man on the street or person on the street interviews. Also too, real quick, here's how this is going to go down. I'm going to show you my rig here. We've got a GoPro right here that's going to be recording me most of the time, hopefully all of it. We'll see how the batteries in the memory card venture with this. There's going to be a GoPro here on the right. That's going to be the actual news one. That's going to be the wide cutaway one. And then of course where you see this blue cell phone mount, that's going to be where my iPhone 10 is. That's going to be the main camera here. And also as well, I'm going to have my Samsung wireless lav with me that I'm going to move around from person to person, or at least get closer to people than my actual cell phone. And I may be in a position too in this to where I have to yank that out and just trust the microphone that's built into the iPhone. So we'll see how that goes too. As we get started, I want to show you guys this schedule. What you're looking at is a schedule of times that Richland put out before the event. So what you're looking at was publicly available through the press release if you read all of it and took the time to actually write it out like you're looking at here. Something you definitely want to do if you know you're going out on a story like this. Because while this is what Richland is telling you is going on, what you can do from here is also add on the things that are going on in your world. For example, we are going to pretend that we have a 5 o'clock deadline for our newscast. In your smaller and medium-sized markets, you'll have a 5 or a 6 p.m. Most will not have a 4 p.m. So we're going to pretend the first possible show you can be in is the 5 o'clock. We're also going to act like that's going to be your package, which means at 6 o'clock, if I could spell time correctly, this is going to be the deadline for your VOSOP. Awesome. What does that mean? That means at 4:45, you need to have the package sent to the station. Awesome. I know the rally starts at 11:45.
You got some business to get to. Thank you for that energy. That's amazing.
Which is great. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on. There's a jazz ensemble, there's some student speakers, the Student Government Association, things that are nice, but that I'm not interested in because a lot bigger things are happening. You have America Ferrera scheduled to get on stage at 12:50, so this gives me an hour to shoot cutaways of the crowd, maybe get some MOS if it's not too loud. This hour, I can really get ahead and get lots of B-roll and cheering and things so that when America takes the stage, I can focus on getting her. Now, will I get some reverse shots of people chanting with her and cheering with her? Of course I will. What this hour here allows me to do is to get all of the super wide shots or maybe some tight shots that could be edited over America or Alicia Keys or Liza Koshy. This hour is an hour to where you can get lots of good stuff, but also try some things, because you know that you have an hour before she even gets here. So use this hour to get what you need to be in a more confident position to cover these other people. So 12:50, America's taking the stage. About 10 minutes later, Alicia Keys is going to say something. 10 minutes after that, Liza Koshy is going to say something. Now, this is a very tight schedule, and anybody who's a veteran in news looked at that and went, there's no way that stays on schedule. There's no way America only talks for 10 minutes and Alicia only talks for 10 minutes. These are celebrities with a mission and a message to say. So 20, 25 minutes each at a minimum. Also, too, I'm showing you this schedule because as we go through the filming of today, this schedule changes, and that is very normal. So this is what Voto Latino and Richland thought was going to happen, what they arranged to happen. It is totally not what happened. So something else I want to bring to your attention is I was told by sources inside of Richland, and I was embargoed with this information. I could not release this to the public until after the event, so I had to keep this information secret. I was told that at 11 a.m., the three celebrities would do a studio interview with students, which I got really excited about because this means I may get some more intimate sound bites. Here on stage, they've got their message and their dance and their mission, and they have a pretty good idea what they're going to say. This interview roundtable, whatever it ends up being, is interesting because they may go more in depth. We may get a more personal story or experience from America or Alicia or Liza. So this was really exciting. I showed up 10 a.m. and I got there early just in case they got here early, which would not end up happening, and that's okay. When I got on site, I asked some people organizing the event, hey, where are we at? Things on schedule, if things change, and I just acted very chill about it, knowing, having covered so many of these, how easy this schedule, this train, so to speak, can get off the tracks. What I had been told was that 11 a.m. right now was the time, but that things could change. They weren't exactly sure what would change, but they had been clearly given a heads up by somebody else higher up that things could be fluid, in flux here. So I'm like, okay, this is actually really good because I've got an hour to just walk around Richland and just sort of see what's going on. Obviously, nobody's gonna be at the event yet. This gives me a chance to walk around and get some stuff. As I'm walking, I don't get beyond the bridge that connects the one breezeway to the second breezeway when all of a sudden these students with these long painted banners just show up right in front of me. They came out of the corner of my eye, so to speak. And I saw that they said, go vote. And I went, oh, this is interesting. So there's one set of students, then the second set of students, and the third set of students. I went, oh, this has got to be like a club or a class or something. And then I see their professor come out, start giving them guidance on where sign number 1 goes and sign number 2 and how they're going to be aligned. And I went, oh, I need to get this. I need to just start following this action and getting B-roll. Things like this will happen to you all the time. Things will just happen to the side of you, in front of you, or you will hear something to get your attention, turn around, and there will be something to shoot. And the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna freak out because you know that you have to shoot it. You know that it's really good. And both those things make you great. Why you're freaking out is that you have no idea what to shoot first. And this is where when we tell you guys wide, medium, and tight, or the longer NPPA mantra of wide, medium, tight, action, reaction, cutaways, what do I have, what do I need, last shot, next shot, that is the order in which you want to shoot things because it's a workflow for you. It gives you a checklist. If you shoot tight, medium, wide, or you shoot reaction first, it's all fine. It just gives you a framework so you don't freak out and you stay calm and you just get in there and you get what you need. Which is, even though what you're looking at me right now, this video looks like chaos, it's these mantras going through my head. I know I want wides of these banners in these students because there's so many banners, it's a cool wide shot. I know I want tight shots of them taking those zip ties and wrapping them around the iron, because the wide shots and medium shots are going to be hard to cut together without the tight shots of the zip ties, because most of the signs are the same and the angles are the same, and I want every shot to look different. So I go right in and I let my GoPro get a general wide. I go in tight with my cell phone. I get on the ground at one point to get a ground angle. When I knew I had enough B-roll, I started talking to a couple of students. Now here was an interesting problem. The lavalier, the wireless mic, is on the professor because she was orchestrating all this and just saying these great, short, natural sound bites. I immediately mic'd her up. I knew that the audio I wanted to hear clearly and all of my B-roll was her. She's far away. She's on the other end of the bridge and I'm on the opposite end of the bridge, and I want to talk to these students while they're working. But all I've got is my cell phone with one mic plugged in. I don't have my professional gear where that microphone that hangs on the side of the camera can get the students while the wireless of the professor is still coming in on the separate second channel. So what I do, I yank the wireless receiver out of my cell phone. My cell phone then defaults to the microphone inside the cell phone, which is the one that we use for phone calls every day. And I just start asking these students questions. Now, this particular student, in terms of sound bites, wasn't very good. It was a lot of one-word answers. He could understand the question I was asking, but wasn't necessarily sure how to express his answer. And you could tell that sort of by his physiology, sort of the way that he was physically interacting. So I knew that I would have to dump out of this pretty quickly. So after that, lots of the students had actually left. I think they started putting stuff away to then eventually go to the rally, because this hour here between 10 and 11, this hour here went by real quick. When you've got something to shoot like that, yeah, your 45 minutes or an hour can go by real quick. And I need to check in downstairs to see if the celebs are still coming to the studio and what this dance is. So I knew my only possible sound, good sound, so to speak, was gonna come from the art professor, because I'd seen her talk, and we had talked a little bit back and forth anyway, which I've cut out of this particular video. She told me that she's from Venezuela, which has a very different political climate, so her experience was giving us, and by way giving the audience perspective on what America could be like if we weren't a democracy. So she gave me some really good sound. Also, I want to point out, this particular day, I really pretended to be you guys, the job I used to have, where I've got this woman who's giving me great sound about get out the vote and voting and democracy. And I know this is probably not the only story I have to file today. You're definitely always going to be responsible for a package and a VOSOT on that package. You're probably going to be sent out on a second VOSOT that has nothing to do with your original story, sometimes a third. There are some markets that are so short-staffed, what you're looking at here is a regular workday, which is a lot. So for you guys, I'm going to shoot 2 stories in one here. One of the biggest news stories outside of politics the day this was taped was the Mega Millions lottery. It had just turned over to $1.6 billion. So I asked around the back end, hey, got a question for you, totally unrelated. Mega Millions. You buy a ticket?
Well, I did not, but my husband did. because I never win anything. But he does. He occasionally wins stuff. So we have a couple of tickets at home.
That'd be a huge win.
Oh my goodness, that would be incredible. I can only dream of, if I win the lottery, just having a magnificent art building, even better than what we have, art building for Richland. It would just be a dream. I love working here.
Well, that's what you would do with it. You would build something here.
Oh, absolutely. If I won, all that money, it's like $400 million or $500 million, something like.
$1.6 billion.
Oh my gosh. Okay, never mind. Oh yes, I would definitely build a whole new campus. I mean, with that kind of money, absolutely. I don't know if a whole new campus, but I would certainly build an amazing art building.
Spell your name for me, please? So now I go into the basement of Richland again to check in on this celeb student interview, and I'm told it has actually been pushed to 11:45. So now I've got an hour to go upstairs and get some person on the street, man on the street interviews with students. Around 12:15, we had gotten word that there was a 30-minute hold put on everything. So the rally's still going on, but in terms of the celebrity stuff, it was going to be at least 30 minutes more because the airplane of which America, Alicia, and Liza were flying on had just landed at DFW. So they had just gotten on the ground. They were just wheels down. So I said, okay, let me go out and try and effort more student interviews. And when I did this, I found two great students. The issue was when I was talking with them, I discovered they were both under the age of 18. One was 17, one was 16, and I can't put them on the air. I can't broadcast them without their parents' permission, or if they signed a special form given out by all high schools to parents at the beginning of the year that needs to be signed by the parents, saying sometimes media come on campus for stories, and by signing this form, you're giving permission to the media to actually interview your son or daughter and put them on the air. I have no idea if their parents signed that form and on a story like this don't have the time to go track that down to ask the appropriate people. So I'm just going to have to do without. And in this case, it's actually pretty easy. I've got a great art professor. I've got a great student who is 18. I know there's going to be nap pops from this rally, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to pull something at least from the stage that's a soundbite from one of the celebrities. Something else that's important to talk about is I shot a lot of video before the rally started that will never see the light of day. I did that because that's what you do. You don't know if the event that you're covering is going to be really good or perhaps really boring. So when there's people doing something, you go ahead and shoot it, especially if you have time. We're waiting for these celebrities to show up. I know there's nothing that I'm missing, and I've already efforted with my time here. I've gotten good student interviews. I've got an art professor. I've got a really good student. So I can go and shoot some B-roll. How did I know what to shoot? I just followed the students. I followed the crowd and discovered there was a lot of free food for students and this winding line because, of course, all students wanted it. I certainly did when I was a student. So there was free food and there was also free cake as well. Now, the cake was cool because it was a long sheet cake and the person serving it kept repeating their motion. So I shot this. I shot a sequence of it just because I found it interesting. I figured this is probably never going to make it into a piece because what voiceover track is going to talk about cake? I had time. It was creative. I shot it. It took 2 minutes. But again, the video of students in line, and even some of the rally video, and that includes the aerial angle up from the library that has those great floor-to-ceiling windows. That shot doesn't make it into the piece because the performers aren't on stage, let alone the crowd here is smaller than the larger crowd when the celebs finally get there. What I could have done when the celebs were there, and I knew that I had enough cutaways back and forth, action, reaction shots, I could have jetted back up there. It was a bit of a challenge because the main way into the library was the main security path for them. So it was harder to get in there. What I could have done is gone down into the basement and gone the back way and woven back around up. Now, back to the job at hand. I could see security start to form the entrance to where they would be brought in, taken downstairs, taken through their secret route to then come back on stage. And that's where I learned, oh, this is interesting. They're gonna start with the rally, then do the studio interview, and then we'll see what happens. My next process question, natural question is, well, okay, what about the march to the polls? I've covered lots of this stuff, highly organized events. I'm beginning to think this may not happen. Here's why. You have to think about how security is going to entourage these people everywhere they need to go. If they're gonna start at the rally, do their thing, be ushered downstairs for a studio interview, they've been taken away from the rally will probably have ended, no students will be left, therefore there's no march to the polls. There's nobody to go but these three celebrities. So I'm starting to ask around if people know if this is still happening. Nobody's really sure, and that's fine. That is a completely predictable answer. That gives me some context that, hey, this probably isn't gonna happen. So they get ushered downstairs, they come back up. Here's a shot of them when they came back up and the mob of students that had found them. After they sort of spent a little bit of time with students there, they started going out on stage and they started the rally. So for this, I just start on one end of the crowd and laterally move to the other side of the crowd, knowing I'm getting a super wide angle shot from my GoPro and that my iPhone can get some tighter medium shots. So we'll go wide, medium a lot, and if the angles are different, those will cut pretty well. Typically you don't cut back and forth from wide to medium to wide because there's not enough of a difference. But here, because you'll see me shooting a lot of wide facing one way and then wide facing the opposite way, the reaction shot way, or with my iPhone shooting the reaction shot way. The action reaction back and forth always cuts. So I know that tights are going to be a challenge here because of just how big the crowd is. I cannot get tight on that stage with my cell phone. There's no way that's gonna happen. So the only tights that maybe I can get are some cell phones, but because everybody's moving and cheering and grooving, that's not gonna happen. Once I get the shot set up, they're just gonna move right out of it. So I'm just gonna flow with the crowd and see what happens. I stayed there while America talked, Alicia talked, and then Liza Koshy. Now, I kept this line in here written like this because none of us knew that Zoe Kravitz wasn't coming till maybe about like an hour or 90 minutes before anybody took the stage. So we knew that she was out, we knew she had been replaced, but we didn't know by who. And we didn't know by who till Liza said her name from the stage. And even then I had no idea who she was, and rightfully so. She's a very popular YouTuber with younger millennials. So the older millennials, those born in the 80s, probably wouldn't know her, but if you were born in the late 90s, you are very much probably a consumer of the content she creates. So I hung out in the rally until it really seemed like they were coming to an end. I definitely had what I needed. I have all three of them saying things. I have students chanting with them. I've got cutaways. I'm good. I know I've got 15 to 20 shots of just the rally. And some of these shots, because there's interaction between the celebrities and the crowd, these shots will be longer than 3 seconds. So I know by experience I'm good. I can feel it. I can leave and jet downstairs and be in position for the studio interview. And it was a great interview. America gave some fantastic sound bites, a lot of them very similar to what she said from the stage, but it was in a quieter setting, a more intimate setting, if you will, with students.
Our lives are impacted by every single decision that our elected officials are making, but they don't look like us, and they don't live lives like us, and that's wrong. That's just fundamentally wrong.
And right after this studio interview, I asked around if again that march to the polls was happening, and was told by some people who were helping usher her out that that probably wasn't, because the next thing on their schedule was getting them directly to Skyline High School, where they were going to empower students there to go vote. So they needed to be ushered out of here. So all of those predictions I had made an hour before was totally true. So with that, they left the studio, were ushered into, of all places, our classroom that had been converted into what you call a green room for celebrities, where there was a little bit of food, and also too where the media could talk to them. Dallas Morning News, Univision was there, and there were some other large cameras there. I'm not sure who they belong to, but they did their media interviews and then were ushered to Skyline after that. So from here, I had an idea for a stand-up, because I know I'm gonna open this piece with the rally and cheering and maybe some chanting, but then sort of in the middle of the piece, or sort of near the end of the piece, I know I'll be transitioning down here to the studio, where the atmosphere is the complete opposite. It's calm. It's thoughtful. It is not energized, a little bit frenetic, if you will, and certainly not as kinetic in terms of the celebrities interacting with the crowd and then feeding off of their energy and throwing it back at the crowd. Downstairs is a completely different vibe. So what I wanted to do was shoot a stand-up transitioning from the rally downstairs. This is such a stark change, such a drastic change, that a stand-up bridge is needed to bridge that gap. It's so important that I, as a reporter, have to pop up on screen and say, this story has been going down this very specific road. We are about to take an unexpected left-hand turn. Let me guide you through that. I knew I wanted to be quick about it. I knew it was going to be from going to the rally to downstairs, so I thought maybe this stand-up should be me starting outside and walking downstairs. So I knew my main camera was going to get me coming through the door. You can still hear me because I'm wearing that wireless microphone. And then one of my GoPros I would clip on to the railing that leads downstairs, and I would have a second shot of me walking downstairs. And that stand-up looks like this. What happened after the rally was just as meaningful, as all three celebrities came inside to have an intimate conversation with students about where they're at with voting in elections. That conversation was live streamed and will live forever on the internet, possibly reaching an even larger audience than they just had in person. Great, so at this point, I know I have to get back, I have to transfer my footage, I have to log it, write it, A-roll it, B-roll it, put in what's called CG times, because sometimes at your station you will be responsible for putting in graphics yourself. At other stations you will be responsible for writing in your script the time at which in the package the director has to be bringing those up on screen. So I've got that whole separate list of things to do, and those will be broken up into different videos. So hopefully this gives you a compressed version of filming that day and all of the things that I needed to do to not only get what I need, but also stay in flow with an ever-changing process.